Trigger warning for today's episode. Today's episode discusses suicide and mental health. If you're going to find this triggering in any way, shape, or form, please stop the episode right now and go and listen to a previous episode.
A mess. But after reaching out for that help, I did try therapy and I was put on some medication. I say to everybody that therapy really helped me. It didn't. And that's because I didn't connect with my therapist, but I'm that much of a nice person. I didn't want to tell that therapist that I'm not finding this helpful. So I just sort of played it out and lied.
Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Before we go into today's episode and the actual introduction, I normally post-show do an introduction to go into detail about the episode. I don't want to do that for today's episode. I'm just going to say my guest, Ellie Scott, today is absolutely incredible. Both myself, Mikey, and Katie have been moved by this episode. So there's going to be no normal introduction. I'm just going to let the episode roll, and I hope you guys enjoy it. It's an incredibly powerful episode. I'm going to get Ellie back on to discuss the charity work that she actually does at a later date. Welcome back to an episode of the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you both mentally and physically become the best version of you. Today, I've got a guest that was meant to be the first guest we were going to have in this brand new studio. However, we've come to the conclusion that Mikey went and slit her car tires. So unfortunately, she couldn't make it down. But I'm very, very delighted to welcome to the podcast, Ellie Scott. How are we, Ellie?
Hi, I'm very good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. Now, I'm really, really looking forward to chatting with you today. Like I said, I know you've been a guest on Mikey's podcast previously. And I was really enjoying listening to the conversation because the topic we're going to talk about, as I sort of mentioned on the intro, is a bit of a taboo topic. Not many people discuss it. And you have had firsthand experience in dealing with it, both from a grievance perspective, then also the aftermath of yourself personally as well. So you are very well qualified to actually talk about this. And I think it's really important we actually discuss this as well. So we discussed off air again about this and basically saying you're very open to talk about it. So can we just take my audience back? Because I said, I know you were a very, very keen singer, musician, and you had this amazing sort of opportunity presented to you. So can you just take my audience back to sort of how this whole thing started as like this amazing sort of fairy tale?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up studying performing arts, always loved singing, always loved performing, and just the opportunity to be a different sort of very outgoing persona on stage. It was really appealing to me. And I was away at uni studying musical theatre, and I went on holiday with my family to Cyprus, and we were in Ayia Napa, all-inclusive holiday. So of course, lots of drinking, just having a good time with my family. And I got really close to the entertainment team there. They were really, really lovely. And I just said to them, I could see myself doing that job. I would absolutely love it. So I said, how did you get into this job? It's something that I'm thinking about in the future. And they just turned around and said, actually, there's an opening at a hotel in the next sort of town across. If you're interested, we can put you in touch with our entertainment manager. I was like, oh, I bet they say that to everybody all the time. But yeah, sure, let's do this. So I got up one night. It was karaoke night, and I
love karaoke, by the way. I've got a nickname, Karaoke Dan, because we went on a staff night out. Don't get too excited, by the way. Don't get too excited, because we went on a staff night out, and I was completely sober, and I was like, I am not doing karaoke. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Adamant. Anyway, we get into this room. 15, 20 of us. No one is getting up. They're all drinking. I'm completely sober, and I just thought, do you know what? Give me the mic. Grab the microphone. Obviously, I think it's from the podcasting. My only excuse is from the podcasting. I'm used to having a microphone in front of me. Anyway, went absolutely nuts. Had an amazing time. Then they couldn't get me off the karaoke in the end. Can't sing at all. Like, obviously, this voice is not made for singing.
Not the point.
Had a great time. Had an absolutely great time. And then literally, I enjoyed it so much. We actually had a staff night out again, last week, doing karaoke again. So I can just picture it now. I know exactly where we are now. The karaoke, the scene's set for me.
Scene is fully set. However, I wasn't stone cold sober. I had a few too many pina coladas. So as a singer, I know this, when I'm trying to sing well, when I'm drunk, it does not sound good. But hey, I was singing Amy Winehouse, Valerie at the top of my lungs and having the best time. And then I went to the bar to order more pina coladas because I'm getting my money's worth of this all inclusive. And I'm chatting to this guy for like an hour or so. And yeah, we were just we were talking, and then he turns around and he's like, oh, by the way, I'm the entertainment manager for TUI. I was like, you could have led with that. Come on, like, cut me some slack here. And he said, we do have a job opening. You seem like a really chatty girl. You can clearly sing. Don't know what he was listening to, but anyway, he said, do you want me to take you for an interview? So I said, yeah, why not? Let's do this. And of course, I was on holiday, didn't have any interview clothes, so I put like my best shorts and vest top on, and they took me off to this hotel. And it wasn't really an interview; it was more just like an introduction. The hotel manager just asked me if I sing. I said yes. He said, "Do you play instruments?" I said yes. And he says, "Okay, well, we'll get your flights all sorted, and we'll see you next week." So I flew home from my holiday on the Sunday, packed up stuff, everything that I had in Newcastle where I was studying, dropped out of uni and moved to Cyprus to pursue this career. And it's really strange because I'm as I said to Mikey, I was sort of the mindset, I'm going to school, I'm going to college, I'm going to uni, then I'll get a job from that. And for me, I wasn't very spontaneous. So this was like the most spontaneous thing. And nobody expected it from me because, you know, I'm sort of surrounded by like this sort of mindset. And all of a sudden I'm like moving halfway across the world and I don't have anybody there. I don't know anybody.
So what made you actually do that then? So in that headspace where you're a bit like completely against the grain, where you've kind of got this life path, this life trajectory.
Yeah.
What was the thing looking back at it that made you think, well, I'm just going to drop everything like a week's notice and then go and do that? Because that's quite a big thing to sort of do.
Massive. And I thought, I'm never going to get an opportunity handed to me like this again. And I look back at it now, and people who I was on my uni course with, like, they are now getting these kinds of jobs, like working entertainment, doing like seasonal work. It's like, I did that and I didn't even need the degree. Like, I did it and I did it on my own. And that's something to be really proud of, because I think a lot of people were like, oh, what are you dropping out of uni for? You know, you're supposed to be going to study. Like, why are you doing it? And I'm like, because this is the career path that I wanted to follow. Like, I wanted to be entertaining. I wanted to make people happy. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And it was a really good opportunity for me. So
I think I think it's a key message for people listening to this. Like, they may have potentially got kids or are of a younger age, to actually understand that if you've got this dream, like you had this dream, you knew exactly what you wanted to do, but people are telling you, oh no, you've got to get this degree. I need to get this degree to do this job that I've just been offered to do. Like, exactly. it makes no real sense. But actually, if you're putting this good energy out there, if you know what you want out of life, these opportunities will present themselves. So if you weren't actually open to that, then actually it could have been really closed off and been like, oh no, actually I'm going to finish my uni degree and then I'm going to come back. But by then it was too late. So it's really interesting. I just want to nip in there. Sorry, like people listen to, actually, it's a very common thing, isn't it, where people have their dreams sort of shot down, or they've got this big idea and then people are like, no. Stick to the plan, go to university and do this. It's like, well, that's not really what I want to do.
Exactly. And I think listening to myself, and my mum is so encouraging and so supportive, and she was on holiday with me and she was like, just do it, like, go for it. And again, I don't think I would have got the opportunity again handed to me as it was. And because if I'd have been at uni and then sort of applying for these jobs, you have to go through the whole audition process. Like, my audition was a drunk rendition of Amy Winehouse while we were on a stage. It was fantastic. So, and I thought, do you know what? It's time for me to be independent and grow up. And I just did it. And I was 18. And honestly, I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, that first season abroad that I did was so eye-opening. I grew up a lot. I became a lot more independent, and learned a lot about myself, and that I could sort of survive on my own. I made new friends. I didn't know I could do that at sort of like, you know, you grow up with your friends and you think, oh, these are friends for life. And then all of a sudden you're thrown into this survival ring completely on your own, not knowing anybody, and you have to sort of adapt to your situation. So I made a lot of really good friends out there, which was fantastic. And while I was singing out there that first year, I worked in one hotel and I did sort of like the daily activities. So, you know, table tennis, aqua aerobic, stuff like that. And then the evening, sometimes I just took my acoustic guitar and sat down in like the fancy dinner restaurants and got to play to all the guests and just have a little sing. Sometimes I was like doing a full-on performance set in the evening, which was great. And I made friends with the other singers that were out there who were sort of like going around different venues and stuff like that. Was their full-time job was just not just because it's a lot of work, but singing in the evening. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. That's something that I'd probably like to do one day. So their agent came and watched one of my shows when I was singing in the evening. And then the next day he messaged me and offered me a job working for him for the next season. And I was like, this is incredible. And he asked me if I knew any other singers. And I was like, I know quite a few singers, but the first person that sprung to mind was my best friend, Georgia. So we've been best friends since growing up. And I was she was looking for sort of like a big break. I knew she was struggling and I was like, let's go together. So as soon as I got offered that, the first thing I did was I rang Georgia and explained the opportunity, and she was all for it. So the following year, we were supposed to go out together and have this whole season. And we were actually planning on living in Cyprus and staying there. So if sort of events hadn't have happened, I would probably still be out there and living there. Rent's really cheap out there.
And it's just an amazing place. I love Cyprus. One of my favorite holidays I've been on.
Beautiful.
Absolutely incredible. So before we get into this, like you mentioned that Georgia had some struggles, like before she went. Like what did you know before? Because obviously you've been best friends with her for like pretty much all your whole life. I know it's like I think your mums are good friends, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. Right.
So can you sort of paint this picture of like her struggles, like her as a person? Because obviously with this and what's about to happen, I'd like to try and paint a picture of what you knew about her and her mental health before you actually went together to Cyprus.
Yeah. So Georgia, and I don't say this lightly about like people, but she lit up a room as soon as she walked in. She had such a bubbly personality, and a lot of people described us as chalk and cheese because she was so outgoing, so flamboyant. And I was the person who would literally be at home with a cup of tea. After my first year in Cyprus, I did all the partying and Iron Appa for the first couple of months, and then I sort of dialed it back a little bit, and liked going to bed at 9 o'clock with a book and a cup of tea. So she was just very outgoing, very out there, and I knew that she'd struggled with depression in the past. It's something that she'd been really open about. And we'd spoken about it many times, and I didn't have any first-hand experience. Sorry, the ice cream van's outside. Really.
Oh, so me and Mikey just recorded a podcast last week. It was just me and Mikey just here talking away. And where this office is now, there's the big big door thing that opens up, and literally in the middle of us talking, right outside, pulled this ice cream van. So me and Mikey were laughing our heads off, like, you're just going to hear us, and you're going to cut back to the cameras, and it's me and Mikey just sat there with his ice cream.
I was going to say, can we just have a quick pause just while I nip out? It's really hot today.
I basically the same ice cream man, just doing the rounds, just trying to drive up to Chesterfield just to get in the middle of the podcast.
Literally, it's just wanting some free promo, isn't it? No, that's really random because he's not come for ages as well. So he would
same guy.
Yeah. He was listening to you. He knows your schedule.
So you're saying she'd been quite open and honest then about this struggle with depression.
Yeah. So I'd not had any first-hand experience with depression. I'd experienced a little bit of anxiety, but it was mainly sort of pressures from college about getting assignments in and uni and stuff like that, but nothing sort of that I needed to sort of seek support for or anything like that. And so I couldn't really give Georgia that much advice, but I could give her just support. Mm-hmm. And she spoke to me a lot about how she was feeling. And I was really surprised that this, like I said, such outgoing and flamboyant person was having these deep, dark thoughts. And she went on medication and she got help. She had some therapy and she seemed to be a lot better. Mm-hmm. So, and I was thinking this whole break with Cyprus was exactly what she needed. She kind of felt like she was a bit stuck. She was in a job that she wasn't really enjoying. She'd always wanted to become a singer. Like, her voice was just the most incredible voice I've ever heard. Like, I could sit and listen to her sing all day. And we used to practice harmonies and stuff over Skype when we were younger, which was pretty cool. She just had the most beautiful voice and she loved singing. Like, that was her happy place. And on social media as well, she posted about her experiences and how she was feeling, and she was very open about it, which is something that I admired because, again, nobody talks about it. No. So to see somebody who I know that's going through these deep struggles be so open about it, I felt really proud that she was able to do that. And it was incredible, but I thought that she'd sort of moved through it. Obviously, I know that depression, it doesn't really go away once you've sort of experienced it. It can get better and you can manage it, but it doesn't go away. But I didn't.
Well, you know that now.
Yeah, I didn't know that then.
So what was your understanding at the time of what was going on? Like, because this is things really important to understand, because people listening to this, their friend might be saying to them, "I'm depressed." Like, so what was your, at that time, what was your understanding of what was she actually going through? Like, obviously, and it's hard now because obviously you now know what it was, but if you can try and put yourself back there, like what was your feelings on it? What was your views on it? What did you actually think she was going through from what she was describing?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't really know anything about depression. I didn't know anything about it. So I took to Dr. Google, did some research for myself once she told me that, you know, she was struggling with depression. And I read loads of like self-help stuff, and I was trying to just be there for her. I knew that I didn't have the answers to sort of fix that. I wanted to fix her because that's the kind of person I am. I want to fix everyone and everything. And I wanted to help her as much as I can, but I knew that I didn't have sort of the answers that she was looking for, and she would have to sort of do that work herself. But for me, I needed to be supportive. That's all I could do. That's all I felt that I could do, was just listen to her and offer support. And I think sometimes I look back on like old messages and stuff, and the ways how I used to speak to G when she was struggling, and knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have said that stuff. It's like, oh, you're okay, you can get through this, you can push through this, you will get better. And giving people hope is a great thing, and giving people support is a really, really good thing, because sometimes people need that, but sometimes people also need to have that time to be sad, and that's okay. And I think by me trying to force this positive energy and positivity might not have been exactly what she needed.
But you say that, I think you say that, it's also, again, playing devil's advocate with this, because I said, we're going to go into this in a second, like the outcome of this for you. I can't imagine what it must be like for you, reading back messages, knowing what you know now, and replaying that. So we're going to get into that. But also playing devil's advocate, she was probably texting you in that situation because she actually wanted your positivity. Yeah. Because actually you being that kind of person, when your life is just darkness, because again, my thing is depression. Sometimes you just want someone to just be that little bit of, oh, okay, well, actually, you know, there's a little bit of happiness. There's a nice person, just makes me smile, like someone actually does care. Do you know what I mean? And to give you that little bit of, you're going to get through it. So I think it's quite a hard thing, isn't it? Because I was actually talking to someone today about this, and it's very hard. People that are struggling with mental health, because how old would she have been when she was starting to struggle with this?
Oh, she'd been struggling since she was about 13, 14.
Because again, audience, people listening back to this, like put yourself back to when you were 13, 14, 15. Like, you can't describe your emotions anyway, whether you're happy or you're sad. You can't, but then trying to actually articulate and describe being depressed and kind of like not wanting to be here, but then not really knowing why or how to come through it. Like, it's a very hard thing to try and articulate for someone that hasn't gone through it, yet alone someone that's at that age as well. Like, it's a very, I don't think people actually understand how hard it is to, because people try and help, don't they? Yeah. But when you're trying to help this person, but the problem is this person can't articulate to you what they need and how they're feeling.
Actually feeling 100% no. And I mean, me at 25, I still can't do that now. I can do it a bit better than but you think, you know, this 10 years ago, how do you describe those feelings when you can't really make sense of them yourself? So, you know, I did all I could as a friend and was there, and I just listened. And I think that's something that's really important to people, is just to listen, because like I've said before, you don't have to have all of the answers as to why somebody is depressed, because sometimes there are no answers, and that's absolutely fine. It can happen. Depression can be triggered for something in particular, like an event or a loss, or, you know, something, and like an actual event, or it can literally just come out of nowhere for no reason whatsoever, and you will probably never know why.
It's like I said, this is the thing, I speak about this a lot, where it's when people are feeling depressed or they're feeling anxious. Like, every single person that goes, again, when you're performing, like me when I'm doing public speaking, I still get a bit anxious now. Now, that does not mean I'm struggling with anxiety.
Exactly.
I mean, people can feel genuinely, just wake up one day and just be feeling low, just incredibly low, no energy, low mood. That then doesn't mean you're suffering with depression. You're just feeling depressed. Like there's a difference between that, and that's absolutely fine. You're allowed to feel that way. I think sometimes that thing of like trying to that old saying, "What we resist persists." You try and push it away. I can't feel this. I can't. You can feel this, and you are feeling this. And again, the whole thing we try and teach is to try and find out where that's come from. But sometimes it just is, and that's okay. And a key thing here that you mentioned there, that I want to look back on as well, because Mikey, I heard Mikey mention this, and I know where Mikey got this from as well, a good friend of ours, Paul Cope. So I just want to sort of reiterate this for my audience, is that when you're talking to somebody like this, it's just saying to you, like, do you need me to listen? Or do you actually want my advice on this? So you're giving the person, rather than assuming what that person wants, you're kind of you're sort of saying, like, do you want me to just listen here? Or like, do you actually want my feedback? Because sometimes people don't want feedback.
Yeah.
They just want to just vent and rant and be sad. Exactly. And it's a really powerful thing where we can actually do that. So let's get back into the story here, because I said this whole thing is just it's bizarre because you're painting this picture and we're having this conversation. I've got pictures in my head because again I've been to Cyprus. Like so I can imagine you're painting this picture of this person that's really outgoing, really bubbly, but then is also then struggling, and it's got this amazing voice. I've got a picture in my head of what I've never seen a picture of her. I've got a picture in my head. So I've got this picture now. So you then break this news to her that you got this amazing gig.
Yeah.
This is an important part of this. Looking back in hindsight, retrospectively, we spoke about this on Mikey's podcast. How did her behavior change when she knew that she was going to Cyprus?
Yeah. So when she was obviously elated at the news and she said was 100% down for it, she said she needed to speak to her family and all that stuff, which is fine. So at this point, she was living in America because she moved over there with her family. So like I said, we FaceTimed and stuff and spoke on social media, but we were always best friends, even though we hadn't really spoken in person together for a while. And she was sort of at that point where I was perceiving it as she was so excited for this big break and this new start, and she didn't have the best relationship with family over in England, because she did have some family over here. So when she moved over, she lived with me, which was fine because I was still living with my mum at the time, and my mum literally saw G as a second daughter because we're inseparable. And she was going out when she was only here for a couple of weeks before we were planning to fly out to Cyprus. So we had like the whole winter season at home, and then we were flying out in April. And she was going out all the time, and when she was here, while she was staying here, there probably wasn't a day that she spent where she was home all day, because she was out seeing everybody that she wanted to before she left for Cyprus. So she was just, going out and saying goodbye to people. Reflecting on that, it now means something very different. Mm-hmm. But she was living her best life, it seemed. She was having like a great time. She's going out, she's getting drunk, she was seeing old friends that she'd not seen for such a long time, spending time with her family.
So for you, there was nothing, I know we're going to loop back to this, like obviously when we carry the story, we're going to loop back to this because again, there's a key point here which you've kind of highlighted. We're going to dig back into this. But from you at the time there was nothing that you were like, red flag, like she just seemed happy.
She seemed carefree, absolutely carefree. She was just, I thought she was just so excited for this opportunity, as was I, to do it with Georgia.
Mm-hmm. So how long were you guys there before the incident happened? We'll deep dive into that, but like how long were you actually there? And when she actually was there, again, did you notice any difference in the behavior? Was there any sort of signs at all? Like what, not necessarily looking back at it, but just when you were there, did you genuinely think that she was having this amazing, like fresh start for herself?
So Georgia flew out to Cyprus a week before I did. So she was there a week before I got there. And in that week, she was poorly, like she had a throat infection. So she didn't feel confident enough to start performing because she knew that her voice was not going to be on top form. She probably wanted me there to give her a bit of encouragement because, again, she didn't know anybody there. I put her in touch with some friends that I'd made the year before, and I was like, you'll be fine when you're out there. like Levi's going to come pick you up from the airport. I'm going to come and see you. This is what's going to happen. She was constantly messaging me, like giving me updates, sending me pictures of like, oh, I've met Nick. Oh, I've met so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, it looks like you're having a great time. And I was helping her put a set list together. And then I flew out the following week, and I arrived sort of afternoon, evening, and we had that time together. And then the following day, we had a show together. And in that first day, obviously, we're all unpacking. I'm sort of settling down. I'm in a new apartment from where I was the year before. And then we'd got a show that night, and we did the show. And I didn't think anything was off with her at all. Like, she was on that stage. We did the show together at this hotel, and she was singing, and like, it was powerful. It was powerful, and she was so good. But some of the songs that she was singing were not in the vibe of what you go to watch when you're on holiday, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Georgia she's her spectrum of sort of music and her taste in music was so broad and so wide. And when you go on holiday, you want upbeat, happy songs, party songs, classics. And yes, she did some of those, but she also did some very slow, acoustic, more solemn songs, which was, I thought she's just trying to find her feet, because this was the first time that I was being a professional singer as well. So my set list wasn't where I wanted it to be. I didn't know what kind of songs I should be singing. We were still figuring it out. And I remember before we went on stage, we took a picture together, both smiling, both happy, full like face of makeup. We were totally ready to do it. And then we got home from that show, and we had a show the next day. And the show the next day was our first show we were going to do an ABBA tribute. We'd got all the costumes, we'd had them custom made. I'd got all of the set list. We'd done this really, really cool intro. But we'd not actually rehearsed it like the full show together. So we said, okay, we can either rehearse tonight, or we can get up early tomorrow and do the rehearsal. And she says, oh, I'm really tired, so I'm gonna go to bed. But I'll set my alarm for 8 o'clock and we'll both be up. I was like, okay, that's perfect. So I stayed up for a bit. I was buzzing after that sort of like first show energy. I couldn't really sleep, lots of adrenaline. And I went to go and see my friend, who we sort of lived in the same complex of apartments, so they were all sort of attached to each other. And I went to go and see my friend who lived in the bottom one, and we sat chatting for a bit. I went to bed, set my alarm to get up the next day. Knocked on G's door, and there wasn't any answer. She was a very heavy sleeper, and she liked her sleep, whereas me, I'm a dead early bird. No matter what time I go to bed, I'm literally up at 6:30 every day. It's just a habit that I can't seem to break, even on a Sunday, which is very annoying. So yeah, I knocked on the door, she didn't answer. I was like, oh, it's fine, she can have a couple more hours or whatever, that's absolutely fine. Come to like 11 o'clock, she's still not answering. I'm like, okay, come on now, Georgia, we need to get up. So I'm like messaging her and ringing her as well as knocking on the door, and there was no answer. Gets to around midday, and our agent comes and says, we need to go and set up because we've got an afternoon show and we need to go do a sound check. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great, but Georgia's not up yet, but I can come and do the sound check. That's absolutely fine. I'll set up and sort some levels out, and I'll just adjust Georgia's levels as she's singing while we're there. She probably is just really tired and still recovering from this throat infection. And I went, I set up, and my agent said to me, if you haven't heard from her in the next like hour or so, just give me a ring and we'll get you a key for the door so you can go in and just make sure everything's okay. So I did that, went, set up, had the sound check, came back, and knocked on the door again. She still wasn't answering. So I went round the front of the apartments to see, and her blinds were closed. So they were closed. I was like, okay, so maybe she is still sleeping. Her car's still here, so she's not left or gone anywhere, unless she's gone for a really long walk or something. That thought, what I was walking into an apartment to see, and I saw, did not cross my mind until I got there, if you get me.
That was going to be my question. And yeah. At that moment, was there any sort of panic, worry, fear, or were you just like, she's just asleep? And
yeah, I genuinely thought she was just asleep. I don't know if there was something in the back of my mind. Maybe there was, but I still can't sort of remember it now, what I was feeling in that moment. I mean, I don't know. I will try and describe how I was feeling, but it's still really hard for me to explain to people how I was feeling. So anyway, I went and got the keys, from our landlord, and I went up and I opened the door, and I clear as day remember walking into her kitchen / living room, and the door to her bedroom was closed. And I was like, Georgia, G, where are you? Like, come on, we need to get up. No answer. So I knocked on her bedroom door, no answer. And then I walked in and it was pitch black. So we had blackout blinds. Obviously, Cyprus is a very sunny place. So we all had blackout blinds. So the room was pitch black. And the only thing I could see was like a light. And I was like, what's this? And it was the torch on her phone that was on. So I was like, okay, her phone's here, but where is she? And then I walked round to the other side of her bed and I found her lying on the floor face down. And as soon as I saw her, I just knew. Like there was something in me that just knew. I was like, she's gone. Like, she is gone.
The worst part of this is I've heard Mikey's podcast, and as you were building this entire story up, I've been getting shivers this entire time because, like I said, I've now got a picture in my head. This entire time, the more details you've been given, I'm just like
it's intense, isn't it?
It's intense, but this is what we spoke about off air. Like, it's intense, but it needs to be spoken about. And I said it's that awkward thing where it's not comfortable talking about this stuff, especially for you. I can't even imagine, but it's like a necessary thing to actually get this sort of information out there. So, in that moment, what was apart from obviously the initial thing of she's gone?
Yeah.
What was then the next thing that went through your mind? Because I can't even begin to imagine what that must be like. Because again, you're not a paramedic. You're not. There's nothing that can possibly train you for anything like this ever.
No.
What was your first instinct to do?
I was quite calm at this point. I knew. I tried to feel for a pulse, but as soon as I touched her, she was stone cold. She was stone cold, and very discoloured, we'll say that. So I went outside and I knocked on my neighbour's door and I said, hi, don't be alarmed. I just need you to call an ambulance, please, to come as soon as possible. And they were like, okay, I'll do that. So, and I went back in and I tried to turn her over, but I couldn't. I was like, okay, I'm going to turn her over. I'm going to do CPR. I'm going to try everything I can. But because of, obviously, she's lifeless, it's very hard to try and turn someone over. And I'm not a big person. I'm short, I'm tiny, I'm 5'2.5" is what I like to say. Don't forget the half, really important. And she was a lot taller than me. You know, she was really, really tall. So anyway, my next door neighbour didn't end up calling an ambulance. She ended up calling and knocking on somebody else's door. And then they came over and I'm like, look, please don't come in. I just need someone to call an ambulance. And they came in, saw what had happened, and they were like shocked, panicked, taken aback. I was like, okay, let's not freak out. Let's try and turn her over and see what we can do, and let's call an ambulance. And nobody was getting the fact that we needed an ambulance. I think everybody was just so shocked. And I was like, if there's something that we can do here, like let's try. So I got my phone. I was in a bit of a panic because everybody was sort of coming in and out and fluttering and getting flustered. And I'm like, guys, no, calm down, come on. So I tried to call an ambulance, but I was in Cyprus. I didn't know whether to call 999, 112, 11, whatever. I didn't know. I just like, what 3 digits do I need to dial? So, I mean, I dialed 999 and I ended up getting through eventually to the right people. And I was trying to say, you know, we need an ambulance. They're like, what has happened? And I'm trying to explain, but there was a massive language barrier. I knew basic Greek, Cypriot. I knew how to say hello, goodbye, can I have a bottle of vodka? That's the only things I knew how to say. I didn't know how to say my address in like another language. I tried to give them the address and it just wasn't getting through to them. And that's when I started to panic because I'm like, you're not coming. Nobody's going to come and I'm going to be stuck here with my best friend, lifeless, and nobody's going to know what to do. So somebody who was in the apartment at this point, one of our other singer friends took the phone from me, saw that I was getting a bit panicked, and managed to speak to them. So then I went back into the room, and at this point we managed to turn her over. And when I say that I wish she'd have stayed flat down, that would have been like a nice way to say it. And I just sat on her bed with my hands like on the side of the bed, and I felt like when I was sat down and I looked under the covers, and there was all these, in fact, we'll not talk about that because that may be quite triggering for people. And I don't want to discuss how she did it on here.
That's
so because I don't want to give other people
ideas.
Ideation.
Yeah.
But then I found 2 notes. And that was sort of a big thing for me. And I took the notes and I sat outside. I remember leaning back against the wall and slumping straight down because there was 2 notes. And the first note was a general note. It's like, to my friends and family. And she's explaining, saying that nothing had particularly triggered her to do this. Nothing. It was a long time coming. And then the second note was specifically for me, which I was like, okay, so this was planned.
Mm-hmm.
You knew that I would find you. And the note was really sort of not too deep, like not too like, oh, I love you. Like they did have a bit of that in, but it was enough for me to know that she trusted me.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. How did that make you feel in that moment? Because I imagine there's a lot of emotions, and I know that you spoke about this before, that you've kind of basically suppressed them for a while, which basically is what eventually ended up to you suffering with mental health. Which again, given how you described that scenario, it's very easy to understand why that happened, because you couldn't get emotion, like you couldn't be full of emotion then because you had to deal with the situation. Other people weren't helping, so I understand that. But in that moment, how did that actually feel to know that she'd like almost trusted you? Like, was the again, you hear some stuff like this when it comes to suicide, that people can get angry that it's happened. Like, how did you instantly feel in that moment?
In that moment, I felt numb. I didn't feel anything. It was very, very strange. Like I was panic and flustered, obviously, at what happened. But as soon as I saw that note, I felt numb. Like I didn't feel anything. It was really, really strange. Like I wasn't crying.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. I was just silent. I felt nothing, and it was really, really strange. Looking back on it now, when I look at that note and sort of look what things mean and stuff, like I have a different perspective. But in that moment, I didn't feel anything.
Mm-hmm. So looking back,
really, really strange.
Looking back from now, why do you think that was?
So I think most of it was shock, and also sort of not knowing how to deal with it. But looking back at what things meant, she had planned this for a very long time. When I gave her that phone call to tell her that we were going to Cyprus, she knew that was her escape point.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back at her going out with her friends, seeing making sure she saw all of her family, she was saying goodbye. So because she lived at my house, she left my mum this beautiful card, and we still have it. She got her a card because I remember having to go and buy it for her, because she'd got no English money left. And the words she wrote was so beautiful. She was like, "You've always been a second mother to me. Thank you so much for having me. Know that I'll always love you." She was saying goodbye. And in that note to me, she was saying goodbye. She'd already gone, but she did it out in Cyprus because she was away from friends, she was away from family. It was sort of that she was protecting everybody in a sense of, she knew who she wanted to find her, because she knew that I would be able to handle it, I think. And putting that trust in me put a lot of pressure on my shoulders. But also it made me feel like, yes, she was my best friend. Because I think I've spoken about this before. When somebody passes away, there's a lot of people sort of come out of the woodworks. Oh, they're my best friend. They were my best friend. And yet, a lot of people grieve in a lot of different ways. But I know she was literally my best friend. And she trusted me with her life and to handle things. So that is what I did.
And not only that, again, you then that night went and sung, which I think kind of just, for the audience, portrays the kind of headspace that you're in there. Like the shock.
I went on autopilot.
The shock, the autopilot, sort of just kind of head down, cracked on with it, and you stayed and did the entirety of the season, didn't you?
Yeah, I stayed until November.
So now let's just fast forward to where we are now, and then sort of look back retrospectively to like. So I remember you saying at that time, there's a lot of people, because you were the only person that was there. A lot of people were asking you 1,000,001 questions, which again is very, very understandable.
Yeah.
But given the situation, and again, for people listening to this that ever find themselves in a situation where a friend or family member has done this, how do you go about trying to obtain information and find out what's gone on without just basically putting so much pressure on this one person to be like, tell me everything, tell me this, and the person's like, I don't even know really what's gone on here. Like, how do you set those boundaries? I think this is quite important, both from the sense of from your position and also from the position of the people asking the questions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with anything with a suicide, there's going to be a lot of unanswered questions that we are never going to find the answers to. I struggled with this a lot. I asked myself questions every day. Sometimes I still do, even now. But we're never going to get those answers. And it's awful when it happens. It's absolutely awful. And of course, you want to know what's going on. You want to find out the information. You want to know what's happened. But at the same time, for that person who's also trying to deal with the fact that what they've just seen and what they've just discovered, as well as their own feelings on their relationship with that person, there's got to be some sort of boundaries in place, or like mutual respect. Mm-hmm. If I could give advice to people who are wanting to find out the information, I think it would be, please don't push for it. Okay, maybe just ask once, leave it, give it time. If they don't reply, be kind to that person. Don't say, why are you ignoring me? Or please give me more information. Just say, I hope you're okay. Not one person, I think, throughout that all of these messages that I was getting like even Facebook message requests from people who I'm not even friends with, who I don't even know, were messaging me saying, what's happened? Is this true? Is Georgia dead? What happened? And I'm just like, I don't know you. Like, I don't owe you an explanation at this moment in time. I don't owe anybody an explanation. I'm trying to process my own feelings. And I felt guilty for not being able to tell people what happened or, answer everybody. But at the same time, it's that mutual understanding of, this person's just gone through something really, really difficult. Let's give them some space and let them.
That's an understatement, by the way. Going from really, really difficult. That is, I can't imagine many more things in life that would be more difficult than that. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? And that's the thing where I think it gets lost and people's emotions get the better of them. And again, trying to bombard you for the information. It's like, just take a step back and understand. Because even in this situation, even if someone hasn't found someone, even if it's friends and family, don't be harassing them because they've just lost a loved one, whatever that may be like. Like, they may not have necessarily specifically found them, but they've still lost a loved one.
Yeah. And I think the thing is to remember, like, not to put too much pressure. People will talk and give you details when they're ready. Some people don't want to give out all of the information. And that's fine, because they're the family, they're the closest friends, and that's their choice. Because people sometimes don't want to say, oh, this is what happened and this is how it happened, because it's private, it's a personal thing, which is absolutely fine. Like, if curiosity, as human beings, we're so curious and we just want to know everything, which is absolutely fine. But at the same time, there's a point of being over curious, and sometimes just nosy and too much. People will give out the information as much as they want to. Don't pry for more. I think that's really important, because if somebody has just lost someone, not even to suicide, just has lost someone, that person needs support and needs to know that people are here for them and say that they will talk when they're ready. Pressuring them for information that they're not ready to talk about is, for me personally, what I think is the wrong way to go about things, because that's just going to put more pressure on that person to the point where they're trying to explain their own thoughts and feelings. They're trying to work that out for themselves. They're trying to figure out what they've just seen and the news that has just sort of been broke to them. And by you asking questions, you probably remember if you're asking questions, you got to think, I'm probably not the only person asking those questions and wanting to find out the answers. How many more people have tried to ask that question?
Mm-hmm.
How must that person feel by having to try and relive that over and over again, type out the same message over and over again saying this is what's happened?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Try and think about the person who's in that position. I think that's really important.
Because I said grief, like I said, it was clearly what you were going through, but like there's grief is just such a it's a master of many different disguises. Like you can go through grief and everyone's is different. So for you, would you say that you had completely suppressed what had gone on to get through Cyprus? And then my follow-up question with that is, how did you actually handle this process, the grieving process, once you'd actually allowed yourself to do it? And then looking back, how would you do it differently?
Good question. I didn't grieve. When I suppressed it, like you said, I sort of like a switch flicked in my head and I went onto autopilot mode and I just carried on. And I went out and did a show that night. I then came back. Once I came back, it was very strange because I had all these people coming up to me and saying, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry about what's happened, like all of my friends. And they sort of rallied around me, which I really appreciated, because the fact that I didn't have like my mum with me or like my close circle, I think I probably might have handled it a little bit differently, because I was the youngest person out there as well in Cyprus, which kind of made it a bit worse because I didn't want anyone to see me sweat. I didn't want anyone to perceive me as weak. I didn't want people to see me cry or break or crumble. I was like, no, I'm a strong person. And now this terrible thing has happened. There's going to be loads of people who are also struggling and I need to be there for them. Like for me at that point, yes, I was Georgia's friend, but I'm not technically not her family. We felt like family. I'm like, somebody's just lost a daughter. Somebody's just lost a granddaughter. And, you know, Georgia had a lot of siblings. Like they've all just lost a sibling. And I'm like, they're more important. That's how I felt, which is wrong. Wrong. But at the time, I'm obviously just explaining this is how I.
But again, you don't. But it's the thing. So many people will have that same thought process. I think it's really important. This is what I wanted to do it in the order that we're doing it, which is really quite fascinating because we're kind of like running through the timeline as it happened, and then we're then going back and being like, well, this is how to do it differently. This is what this thing meant. I think it's really powerful that we can actually do this because, as you said, so many people, not just in this situation, but in life, when something bad happens, like, right, well, I need to put everyone else before me. And then before you know it, 6 months down the line, you're an absolute crumbling wreck and no one's there asking if you're okay. So I think it's really important you said that. Again, we know it's wrong. We're going to talk about that in a second, but I think it's really important that you actually, as you just did, articulate the fact that that is how you were feeling and that is kind of how you dealt with it. Like, well, I need to look after everyone else first. Yeah.
And then I came home after Cyprus. And again, I was still suppressing a lot of things. I spoke a lot with the family. They all kept saying, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm fine. I'm doing okay. I wasn't. I thought I was. That's it. I wasn't doing okay, but I thought I was. I think because I'd suppressed it that long, I taught myself and sort of like wired my own brain to be like, you're fine. You're coping. Look at this. You're doing a great job. You're doing fantastic. And I came back home. I went back working at Nando's because I needed some money, needed a job. And we did like a fundraiser for, it would have been Georgia's 21st birthday the following March. And I was like, let's have a celebration. Loads of people are going to find this time really difficult. Let's bring everybody together in one room. Where people fly from America. Like some of the friends came over and it was lovely. And again, still not crying, not breaking, not doing anything. Like I didn't really feel that much emotion. I thought I was doing a grand job. I thought it was great. And then towards the end of that year, I crumbled. I had it that, well, it's happened twice, but this was the first time I realized I needed help because I sort of looked at myself in the mirror after such like a long time of pretending I'm okay. And I'm like, it got to a point where I thought the actions that I were doing were very normal when really they weren't. I was paranoid. I couldn't talk to my friends. I couldn't talk to my family. I thought everybody was judging me. I thought everybody was talking about me. I didn't want to go outside. Didn't want to leave my house. I didn't want to leave my bedroom because I felt that everybody was sort of like against me. Everyone was talking about me. Nobody liked me. Everybody's blaming me for what's happened. And I was that low, and because I couldn't articulate those feelings, I mean, that's part of like anxiety, because I've suffered with both depression and anxiety. And it was spiraling to the point where I didn't know what to do, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't function as a human being because these thoughts were constantly racing around my head and made me absolutely exhausted to the point, like I said, where I just couldn't do anything. So I reached out to a member of Georgia's family because her dad's side of the family are absolutely wonderful, and her dad is amazing. And I reached out to them and I said, I think I need help and I don't know where to start, because I started looking online, but my head was in a state of panic. I was like, I don't even know where to start. What do I search for? I'm depressed. I'm sad. Grief. Like, I didn't know. I was saying to myself, Georgia's been gone nearly a whole year. You should be over this by now. But in reality, I hadn't actually processed what had happened properly.
Yep.
So I was just, a mess. But after reaching out for that help, I did try therapy and I was put on some medication. I say to everybody that therapy really helped me. It didn't. And that's because I didn't connect with my therapist, but I'm that much of a nice person. I didn't want to tell that therapist that I'm not finding this helpful. So I just sort of played it out and lied. Which
what had did that therapist help you identify in any way what was going on, or was it literally just a complete waste of time, would you say?
It was a complete waste of time.
Okay, so you still no better off at the end of that. You were still no better off about knowing what was actually going on inside your head.
No, I wasn't being truthful to myself when they were asking me questions and stuff. I didn't know how to articulate my feelings. I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I get a bit sad about this. This is how I spoke about it. And they were sort of like talking about coping strategies and stuff. And I was like, do you know what? I don't really need them. Like, I'm okay. But I didn't connect with that therapist. So by this point as well, I changed my work stream. So I wasn't working at Nando's anymore. This might be a little bit confusing. So I was starting to work in mental health because I wanted to make a difference, even though I wasn't fully functioning myself. Again, this sort of like this hero concept within me wanted to help everybody else. So I was like, I'm going to work in mental health. I've got to use what I've experienced to help other people. And I was very good at hiding it, at how I was feeling. And when the therapist asked me what my job was, and I told her I worked within mental health, all of a sudden she was treating me like a colleague, and I hated that. Like, I'm not your colleague, I'm here for help. And I think that's when I lost trust. Like, you know, I'm here for some support and I don't think I'm quite getting it. But that was probably my own perception of it because I wasn't ready to accept help at the time. So yeah, bit of a roller coaster.
I think there's a key thing there with that, because a lot of people will try therapy and say therapy doesn't work. And I feel like in that situation, with the number of people I've spoken to about that, it's normally a case of that they weren't in the right headspace to have therapy in the first place. Like, you have to actually be in the place of, right, I'm letting my guard down here. I need to let this person help me. That's a key thing. Like, you can't, the therapist can only work on what you give them. So you've got to be in that place that actually wants to be helped. And the second thing is that connection thing as well. Just because, for example, I'm not sure if your therapist was male or female, but if you're a male and you have a female therapist, maybe you don't connect with a female. So maybe you've got to try a male therapist, or maybe it's because they were too young, or maybe they're too old. Whatever it is, I feel like it's not you get one therapist and that therapist is going to fix you. Let's just try this therapist. Okay, that didn't quite work. Okay, why didn't it work? Let's go from there. I think it's a trial and error almost until you find it, rather than this doesn't work. Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know that then. No. I didn't know that you could ask. Well, I kind of did, but I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to. And I know now that, you know, this is sort of like advice that I would give. Therapy does work when you're ready for it and ready to accept the help. Like you said, you've got to be in that right mind space to be able to give that information up. But also, therapists will not be offended if you tell them that you're not the right fit. It's literally part of their job. And I think that's what puts so many people off, because if you don't have that connection with the therapist, if you just don't click, if you're just not a good match, because it happens, they will not be offended, because at the end of the day, the therapist wants to help you the best that they can.
And if they're not the right person to help you, then they will try and find someone who is.
And most therapists have gone through their own mental health journeys. So that's why they're so good at their jobs. They will actually understand, they will get it. So again,
Exactly.
I think it's important to understand that. So after that therapy, you still didn't know if you were struggling from anxiety, depression, grief, whatever it was. How did you then ultimately find that out, what was actually going on, and then how did you actually go through the process? Because we've said this before numerous times, like once we ever struggle with depression, anxiety, any sort of mental health, like every single person has mental health, whether you think you do or you're not. It's just like cardiovascular health, bone health, blah blah blah.
Exactly.
Just because you're not struggling with it now doesn't mean you won't at some point. And once you have struggled with it, you are then very, very aware that at any point, like you can struggle. So I think it's a key thing to sort of recognize. Like for me, like I still have my bad days, like it happens, and I'm sure you do as well. But how did you first get this sort of like light switch moment of, oh my god, this, and then and then wow, this is actually what this is? Because that's a key thing when people, because to have that light switch turned on, it's a massive relief to be like, oh, this is what it is. Like, oh, amazing, someone gets me.
Yeah. So it was sort of like a few months down the line. I was taking the medication still from my GP, wasn't really doing anything. If anything, it just made me feel a bit numb. But then all of a sudden, like over time, I started experiencing emotions that I hadn't felt for a long time, but not good kinds of emotions. I started feeling really sad and crying. And for me, I'm not a crier. Like I'm not. I refuse to watch Marley and Me because I know that will make me cry.
Yeah.
But like I'm not a cry sad person. Like I'm not like very in touch with my emotional side, and that's something that I've always been like. So like growing up. And I just started crying, and I'm like, oh my god, tears, what are these? And then I started experiencing things which was very strange. So there'd been a recent death of a young girl within sort of like where I live. Lovely girl, same age as me, went to school with her, and it was a very sort of big funeral, and she was drawn in on a horse and cart. There were purple ribbons that were tied up and down the streets of like sort of all around where we lived. And for me, that was my trigger, because I didn't remember George's funeral. I didn't remember anything about that day. And the funeral of this girl was held in the same church as George's. And I'm seeing all of these things. And I felt that I was back at George's funeral, and I couldn't escape it. These ribbons were on the streets, and they were there for such a long time. And I started to avoid driving like out of my house, because I knew that I would see these purple ribbons and I would think of George and I'd sit and cry. I couldn't put my phone torch on because, like, say, for example, like you go into bed, you turn your light off, you put your phone torch on to see where you're going to walk to bed. I couldn't do it, because as soon as I saw that phone torch, I was taken back, and I was stood in that moment of walking through George's door and seeing that phone torch. And then I would panic, and I would end up in a state of like really, really like a really bad panic attack. And I couldn't ever really get myself out of it until I was just that panicked out. I crashed and cried myself to sleep. And I was like a complete insomniac. Like I didn't want to sleep because I knew that if I fell asleep, I would be dreaming and I would have flashbacks as to what happened. And I was like, okay, this is getting to a point now where this is really bad. Yeah. Like we need to do something, because I was getting to a point where I was worried for myself and about like my own safety. So I said, okay, right, I need to talk to someone. Let me try this again, because this sort of happened progressively over time, like over the space of a few months. And when I first started to notice myself slipping, I didn't want to go back to therapy because of the bad experience I had before. But when I was in this state, I knew that if I didn't get some help, then, you know, I don't know what would have happened, but I needed to get some help.
So you at this point, you felt very out of control.
Completely.
Yeah. And were you aware, obviously with the flashbacks and stuff that was going on, because obviously I know what the diagnosis was. Were you aware at this top point of what that potentially was, or did you just think you were going crazy? Like what was going through your mind? I know you needed you know you needed help.
Yeah.
But what did you think was going on?
I had a bit of an inkling because I'd heard of this. I've heard of PTSD before. I'd heard of it, but I was still telling myself, oh, this is not what it is. You've not got this. You're fine. That's what I kept telling myself. But it grew more and more intense. And I'm like, I need some help. And it's very strange. So obviously, what was very good is this was happening all in lockdown and I lived on my own. So nobody knew.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like a bit of a relief to me because nobody saw me experiencing these things. But also it was bad because I was keeping it to myself and nobody knew what was going on to offer me help, if that makes sense. Absolutely. So I wasn't going out to work. I didn't have to. I was doing it from home. I wasn't going out with my friends.
So you could just put this face on this little Zoom screen here. I put this mask on, pretend that you're all okay, and then no one would be any the wiser.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, and then I couldn't go out with my friends because we weren't allowed to. So nobody knew what I was going through. And when I did try therapy again, I decided to go with like a different provider because I was like, I don't want to run that risk again. And I actually opened up fully. It took a long time. I had a lot of sessions, but I was in that space where if I don't talk to someone honestly and truthfully, I'm not going to get any better. And I need to get better. If I want to do all these things that I want to do around mental health and help other people, how am I going to do that if I'm an absolute mess? I can't do it.
So when you got to the bottom of what it was in PTSD, can you just explain to people what that actually is? And then what has been the steps that you've done? Because obviously I'm assuming, I just want to make sure that I'm being succinct with this timeline. So up until Georgia's suicide, you hadn't suffered with depression or anxiety at all. And then from there, you developed anxiety and depressive symptoms. And then that then compounded into PTSD. Is that just for the audience? You sort of mentioned the anxiety and depression, but just for the audience, I want to make sure.
Skipped over a bit.
Yeah. Just want to make sure that's kind of, because it's interesting for me how we ignore the initial alarm bells. And again, depression normally leads to anxiety, or anxiety normally leads to depression. They're very intertwined, very close related. And if that goes unchecked, that's when things can then spring off from that. So it's just like what you ended up with the PTSD there, like that is normally a result of other things. So again, just people
that could have been prevented.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's the point I'm trying to get to. There's like people listening to this, like it's very, very preventable if you're able to understand that you're not quite yourself and you've reached out a bit sooner, which I know you tried to do. So it's just, but then that's why it's important. You mentioned you tried, it failed. Here's why it failed. Here's what you've done differently. It's really important. So you got this PTSD. What then steps have you gone through to go through the process of getting yourself in this good headspace?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Going through therapy was really difficult because I hadn't spoken about in detail and in depth what had happened and what I had seen to anybody. I'd mentioned things to my family. I'd mentioned things to my friends, but never actually unwound what happened. And a lot of things were very fuzzy in my brain. Like I didn't remember a lot of it, or I remember snippets of it, but I'd never be able to piece the whole thing together. So when I started this journey with therapy and we were talking about it, the sort of like probably 4 weeks into it, I felt worse than what I did. But I knew that I needed to feel worse in order to get better. And I think that's some advice that I would give, is to, even if you do feel worse, don't stop there, because even though you feel like you're at your lowest, you need to sort of uncover that because it's been suppressed for so long. Absolutely. Or it's been suppressed. You need to understand those emotions and work through them in order to feel better. Yep. And if you quit while you're down, it's going to take a hell of a lot more work to get back up to where you need to be in a good headspace. So I'd never heard of post-traumatic. I had heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, but I'd never encountered anybody with it. A lot of people sort of make jokes like, oh, I've got PTSD of this, of like, you know, if something like silly happens. And I'd never, you know, really taken that into account before, but like until you've actually been through it yourself. you see like a completely different perspective, and you see it in the films, or like, I don't know, like on Grey's Anatomy or whatever, when someone's suffering from PTSD and they're stood there talking to themselves, are absolutely crazy. And that's not how I was. So that's why I didn't think that I had it, because I'm not acting like that. But I did. And everybody's very different. And I always say mental health is definitely not one size fits all. And what anxiety looks like on me is not what anxiety would look like on you. And what depression looks like on you would not look like on me. Exactly the same with any mental health disorder.
Yeah, but what does that saying? Where if you met one person with anxiety, you've met one person with anxiety. That's it. Like every single person, as you said, is completely different. And I think that's also, I'm really, really glad you said that. Actually, it's a really key point here, because I think a lot of people push things off because they see things on TV and on the movies. Oh, well, I'm not thinking about suicide, so I'm not depressed and struggling.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the spectrums, like, and as we said before, if you can get there before it gets there, so I can still get out of bed and go to work, so I'm not that bad. Okay, but how hard is it for you to get out of bed? I mean, it's this. Exactly. And I think people are very sort of quick to say, well, I don't match that exact thing there. Like my friend had it once, I don't have what they have, so it's not what I've got. Yeah. I think it's very good to understand, like, it's very hard. It's coming to that awareness of only you know if you're not feeling like you.
Yeah.
So no one else can tell you otherwise. And then once you don't feel like you, it's then like, right, how long have you not been feeling like you for, and how bad actually is it? And be honest with yourself. And then it's then go for the process of actually reaching out. So what was the journey of like for you to actually overcome this? What sort of have you done to actually go through that process?
So I did, like I said, it was mainly the work with the therapist, but it's a lot of work that you do yourself. That, you know, you can go to therapy and they can tell you what to do, but if you don't actually put those steps in place, like I did a lot of exposure therapy with like the phone torch and stuff, and that was really scary to start with. Like I had to, even while I was sort of like speaking to the therapist, she was like, turn your phone torch on. I was like, I can't do that. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. And the first time I did it, I ended up having like a massive panic attack. But the more times I did it, the more times I got used to it. And then, you know, we started putting things like the following couple of weeks. It's like, well, why don't you go to bed at night, read a book and turn your light off and use your phone torch? So you're not focusing on the phone torch, you're focusing on the words that are on the book or on a magazine or something else that's not, you're using the phone torch for its purpose. And then we also worked on like things to say to myself when I was struggling. And a lot of people find this really silly. I used to think it was really silly, like I'm not going to talk to myself and say stuff to myself. That's weird. But now I can't talk enough about it because of how much it does help. And just by saying to the words, like the words to myself, I'm not where I was. I'm at home. I am safe. Like, turned some cogs in my head and made me realize I'm not back in Cyprus. I'm not in Cyprus. I'm not in that room. That's gone, that's done, that's happened. We need to figure out how we're going to move past it.
We talk inside our heads all the time. So what's the difference between talking in our heads and just talking out loud? I literally do it all the time. I think it's a really powerful thing, because this one of the biggest things for me is like, you're with yourself from the moment you're born until the day that you die. So why not just become your own best friend? So right there, by you talking to yourself, you're literally, it's as if you've got someone there with you. And you're just like, you're safe, you're okay, you're fine, you're at home. It's just such a powerful thing, and it's so underutilized. And it does bother me a lot where people get stigmatized for talking to themselves. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I think it's a completely normal thing to do. We all bloody do it. Like, why not just say it out loud so you can hear the words, and then you can then deal with it better?
Exactly. I did, well, I'll probably talk about it more in a bit, but like, I did a campaign for World Suicide Prevention Day last year called I Am Here. And it was just about sort of writing a little note to yourself that you can see somewhere where you'd see it every day and you can say it to yourself. And I still have it up on my wall. There's a little quote here that is one of my favorite sort of like song lyrics, and it says, I know it's dark right now, but just believe somehow there will be light. And if I'm ever struggling, I just look at that, I say it to myself, and I'm like, right, okay, you're grounded, you're here. And I've got another one that says, I am here. And they've been on my wall for like over a year. So
I love that, the power of song lyrics. I don't know if you heard the latest song with Sigrid and Bring Me the Horizon, but the lyrics in that, it's just a bad day, not a bad life. Like, I was going through some bad stuff recently, and that right there, I was like, wow, how powerful can those words actually be? Like, it's just a bad day, but it's not a bad life. And that key thing, that's not a bad life, that is so powerful. So again, I've still got quotes up on the board right in front of me now. I think having those positive affirmations, which again, go into affirmations on another podcast, but I just says positive words of reinforcement, where when you actually read them, it actually helps you just ground you and be like,
yeah,
oh no, I'm actually okay. So what I'm going to do on this podcast here is like this. I want to go deep into charity and the work you do now, but I actually want to bring you back to do that because I don't want to rush that because we're coming to the end of the podcast. So I don't want, because
oh my gosh, have we really been talking for that long?
we've been going, but again, this has been an incredible. So what I want to do with the value that you provided there, I want to stop it. We're still recording right now, so don't.
That's it.
Done. End. Fin. To be continued.
To be continued.
But I think the value that you've done that, I want my audience to actually go away and digest that, and I actually then want you to come back because the work you do now, like linking in with this, is incredible. Like, it's absolutely amazing. So I don't want to rush through that because that episode in and of itself, again, could be very useful and helpful to people, especially people with kids. So for me with this, I just want to sort of like just sort of like succinctly summarize this entire episode we sort of spoke about here and just give the key points to this. I think, again, I'll just summarize it and I want you to chip in with this as well. The key thing here with this is, I think, when you see someone struggling in whatever way, shape or form it is, you're doing the best that you can. I think it's a key thing we spoke about at the very, very start. Like, a lot of people in hindsight try and beat themselves up. It's important to understand you're doing the best with the information you've got. And then linking back from there, if someone is going through some grief or some sort of struggle, very, very important to make sure that you give that person space. Don't over ask questions of that. I think the key thing that we didn't talk about here is ask that person if they're okay from a place of genuine sincerity. Are you okay? Can I help you? I think just that in and of itself, it could put the flip side on its head. Did anyone else do that?
It will go a really long way.
Did anyone do that?
Not really. Other than my mum, who would ask me a lot, "Are you okay?" A lot of the people who were asking the questions, it wasn't sincerely. Or they would say, "Oh, what happened to Georgia? What's going on? What happened? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you don't mean that.
No, you don't really care.
I don't want to tell you."
Yeah, you just got to put it in at the end. So one question I ask all my guests, and again, this is powerful to this. I'm going to ask two questions. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone that is struggling to deal with a traumatic event in their life? And then my second piece of thing is, like, what advice would you give to your old self that was going through it?
Yeah. So to someone who's struggling, I would always say, be kind to yourself and listen to your body and what you need. Don't try and suppress feelings, because part of the healing process and for you to get better is to understand those feelings and actually feel them and work through them, not push them down, because they won't go away. I think a lot of people think if we push those feelings down, that they're just going to go. They won't. They will always be there. You have to deal with them, and the sooner that you deal with them, the better the outcome. But be kind to yourself and just, look after yourself and make sure that you're okay. Check in with yourself. And it's okay to be down. It's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel emotions, whatever emotions you want to feel, as long as it doesn't last forever.
Yeah, everything's bad. I think the key thing is about the grief as well. I've had a past guest that said that. It's basically, when it comes to grief, if you don't deal with grief, it is the most patient emotion, and it will sit there for as long as it takes for you to actually turn and face it. As you've said there, if you could actually just sooner rather than later actually face it, then it allows you to go through that process a lot better.
Yeah, not to rush it. Don't rush it. Do it when you're ready. Just don't suppress it.
Absolutely.
And grief is so different, and people grieve in loads of different ways. There's not a right way or a wrong way to do it. What helps me might not help you or anyone else, but it's important that you do deal with it and find the right help. And just because you try one thing and it doesn't help, don't give up. Like, try something else, keep going into it, because you will find something that helps, and it will get a little bit better. It will never go away, and the feeling of the pain that you're feeling will never go away. It will just get easier to manage.
And you can then get enjoyment out of life.
Exactly.
Although it's still there, and you do then get to enjoy all the amazing things that life has to offer.
Exactly.
Where can people find out more information about you if they want to connect with you on? Again, I know we didn't talk about the charity, but we will. So where can people find out your personal page and also your charity page as well?
Yeah. So my Instagram is EllieTot24 because everyone calls me Jelly Tot because I'm dead short. So it's cool. It's on my number plate as well. So yeah, on Instagram, my personal Instagram is EllieTot24, or the charities foundation that we'll talk about to find out more information about what we do. We're over on the Georgia Bird Foundation on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
Honestly, this has genuinely been an incredible podcast. Like it's been really moving for me, even though I knew what we were going to talk about. It's been very moving for me, and the way you actually articulate it and paint a picture and have been so open and honest has been incredible. And again, I know it would have helped a lot of people, which is why I want to keep this episode by itself, because I don't want to dilute either part of the episode. And like I said, I could talk to you all day long. You're incredible, so I'll get you back, and then hopefully maybe Mikey won't slash your tie, and we can actually get you down here for the second part of it.
I'm picking new ties up tomorrow, so I won't tell him where I'm getting them from because I'll come around and flash them before I get up here.
Honestly, thank you very much for your time today.
No, thank you. It's been wonderful.